Step into the super crowd, where dreams take flight. Learn to invest like a pro, make your future bright. Impact investing, changing the game. Crowdfund the world, it'll never be the same. Super Crowd Hour, come join the ride. Change the world with us, we're on your side.
Welcome to the Super Crowd Hour. I'm your host, and today I'll be presenting. I'm Devin Thorpe, and I am just thrilled to have you here. We're excited to share with you our Super Crowd Hour event. And we've been doing this for a while, but we've just added the E360 TV distribution. So we've got a huge new audience joining us today. I want to welcome all of you especially, but if you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, on our newsletter, wherever you're watching, we're thrilled to have you here, and we're excited to engage with you today. This show is live. I want to repeat that. We're really and truly, honestly live, and so you can ask questions today during the show. You can, if I say something you don't understand, I want you to stop me in my tracks with a question and help me figure out how to help you. You can submit questions with the chat function, the comments function on LinkedIn or on Instagram or on YouTube or Facebook. You can also submit questions, and my colleague Shannon's going to put up the little instructions for that. But just go to 4SCFun/question if you've got a question for us. We're excited to talk to you today. With that, let me get started here. We are thrilled to be here. We couldn't do this without support from our sponsors. And our max impact sponsor for the Super Crowd Hour series is the Digital Niche Agency, really the leading agency in investor acquisition for kind of marketing a crowdfunding campaign. These guys are the real deal.
Digital Niche Agency is the top investor acquisition agency. DNA has helped founders raise over 9 figures via regulated investment crowdfunding with a 3-pronged strategy using digital advertising, content marketing, and strategic outreach. Book a call today.
Yeah, we're really grateful to have DNA, Digital Niche Agency, as our max impact sponsor. Our impact sponsors include Purpose Rounds. These folks are investing upfront in high impact businesses that are raising capital from the crowd to help fund a proper crowdfunding campaign. They're great. Halyard Compliance, another impact sponsor. These folks are the experts in crowdfund compliance, especially designed to serve the portals in our community. We have a variety of supporting co-hosts, including Funding Hope, Ridgecrest Herbal, Amoeba, the American Independent Business Alliance, Move the Needle with Rob Kaplan. Rob's a big deal, a big supporter of ours. We're grateful to him. And of course, Rotary International. We had a sponsor donate their sponsorship to Rotary to support that great organization. We also have a variety of co-hosts, including the Crowdfunding Professional Association, the Gig Group, Jenny Casson Group, Dakin Capital, Community Vision Solutions, Crowdfund Main Street, and CrowdMax Publishing. We love these guys. We're grateful for their help and support. I want to thank my colleague Chandan Saha. Chandan is the producer at SuperCrowd and helps us with all of our video production and marketing and stuff. He's really huge. He and I have worked together for a dozen years. I'm constantly learning from him. He's just great. I want to point out that we're talking today about financial stuff. We'll be focusing on how to raise money from the crowd today, but I may mention some things about investing. Let's be clear. I'm not a registered investment advisor. This is not investment advice, but we want you to feel like if you have questions, we encourage you to get your questions answered by a professional who's qualified in terms of how to invest your money. With that, we're building a movement here at the Super Crowd. And one of the ways that we do that is with our Impact Chair Club. We created this 3 years ago. We've got a dynamic little club of people who get together every month and talk about how they can invest. We look at deals every month and typically invest in 1 or 2 deals every month, and typically small amounts. Everyone is welcome. We're really focused on getting good returns while we have impact. So we're making money, having fun, and doing good. That's a pretty powerful combination. You're welcome to join us. Learn more at impactcherub.com. That's impactcherub.com. Please join us. I want to also encourage you. I've written a book about how to make money as an investor, how to make money with impact crowdfunding. This is a guide to investing. I encourage you to check it out. You can get the ebook free. You can get the paperback at Amazon and just search my name and look for impact crowdfunding. It'll be there. But if you want the free ebook, I encourage you to sign up here right now, get the free ebook. Now, we've also established a mastermind group. Today, we're talking about how to raise capital from the crowd. One of the tools we use at the Super Crowd to help people learn how to raise capital from the crowd is our new mastermind group. And we invite you to check that out, learn more, and join us. We'll be meeting tomorrow for our next meeting. We'd love to have you there. Visit 4sc.fund/M as in mastermind. So 4sc.fund/MM. We'd love to have you there. I want to tell you just a little bit about myself. Those of you who know me think of me as the show host, the podcaster guy, and you may not know my background, but the reality is I owned and led an investment banking firm for a number of years. I was the CFO of the 3rd largest company on the Inc. 500 list a while back. I was the treasurer of a public company, a company that traded on NASDAQ. I selling off 7 books. You saw my impact crowdfunding book. We've done 1,500 episodes of our show over the years. Chanton's been helping me with that for a long time. And I'm the CEO of the Super Crowd Inc. So as I talk to you today, I want you to appreciate at some level that I bring in an element of expertise that may not be apparent from the fact that I host a show. So we're grateful to have everyone here and watching today. We're thrilled. And with that, we'll continue on. So let me address first, who can raise capital from the crowd, right? Is this relevant, right? I think some of you will want to know, is this relevant to me? My answer to that is yes, it's relevant to you. Why? Let me walk you through this. If you are thinking about running or do run a very small business, this is relevant to you. Could be almost the smallest business imaginable. You can raise as little as $25,000 via regulated investment crowdfunding. So quite small loans can be critical, right? If you're financing your business with credit cards and those credit card payments and the interest are really burdensome, you may be interested in knowing that with crowdfunding, you can raise capital at much lower costs than the cost of interest on your credit cards. This could be a thing for you. So stick around. Now, if you've got a startup, think of it your classic Silicon Valley style startup. There's some in the venture community will tell you that crowdfunding is not a good idea. I'm here to tell you, this is a great way to raise capital. Not necessarily for every deal, but certainly there are a lot of true startups at every stage of the game who are raising capital from the crowd. And so if you've got a startup, you are certainly eligible to participate in crowdfunding. We've got tools to help you protect your cap table and some of the things that critics sometimes offer for why crowdfunding isn't a great plan. But let me be clear, you can raise capital from the crowd, and some great companies like Substack, and Beehive, and many others have raised capital very successfully from the crowd. And the raising capital from the crowd can go up to $75 million. It's also relevant if you are a community builder who is literally building, right? You're a developer, a contractor, and you want to do a project, need some financing. Crowdfunding can play a role in helping you gather the financing you need. There's some great portals that focus on real estate. That can be a great way to get the capital you need for your next project. Businesses that aren't small. There are a lot of businesses in this country that we don't think of as small businesses. They have 500 to 5,000 employees. And you might be thinking, why would they need to use crowdfunding? There are all kinds of occasions when they might want or need to use crowdfunding, and there's an opportunity that's worth exploring for these businesses. As I mentioned, you can raise up to $75 million this way. So this is serious money. And there are a lot of businesses that could use that. I would even say that public companies can use Regulation A, one of the exemptions from registration that allows you to raise capital from the crowd, from your community, and you can raise up to $75 million this way. Is this a way that Tesla is going to raise capital? No. But there are hundreds and hundreds of what we call micro cap and small cap companies that have a market capitalization of less than $1 billion. And if you need to raise 75 million, maybe this is the way to do it. Maybe this is the way to do it. It can complement your capital structure in a way that could really be powerful. Okay, so I'm going to take you through 12 different steps on how to assess your crowd's potential to invest. And I'm optimistic that by the time we're done today, you'll be able to identify some new tools, some new places to look for capital that you may not have been thinking about before. And you may be able to say, maybe I can raise capital from the crowd. So let's start off. As a general rule, entrepreneurs, small business owners, you want to be looking at friends and family first. And I know it can be awkward, for sure. I get that. I've raised capital, and I've raised capital from family and friends. And it is challenging to have those conversations. I get that. But if you don't believe in your business enough to ask family and friends to invest, do you really dare ask other people too? Why is it fair? If you're not going to succeed, maybe you shouldn't be raising capital at all, right? If you're going to succeed, why don't you want your family and friends in the deal, right? You want them to participate in your success and ride along with you. So start with your family and friends. Now, your family and friends network is probably a little different than, somebody else's. And so let's talk a little bit about how to assess that. It's pretty simple, right? These are people you're talking to on the regular, by definition, right? Family and friends. Ask them, tell them what you're thinking about doing, and ask them if they would be willing to support you. And if so, you can even go one extra step of awkward and just ask them, how much do you think you could put into my business if I were going to do a crowdfunding campaign? And that will help them. Okay. Customers. Now, for those of you who already have customers, that is, I think, the best place to look. These are people who are already giving you money, right? If you've got a group of people who are already giving you money and they're happy that they are, good golly, these are people that you can ask for more money, right? And on terms where they can get some of it back with interest, with appreciation. You can help them be better off. This could be a great audience for you to raise capital. How to assess this, right? Let's start thinking about this in an analytical way. Start by looking at the number of customers that you have. And then you've got to be thoughtful. Do you have contact information? Can you get in touch with them in some way? Do you have contact information for them? Do you have a pattern of communicating with them? If you suddenly send them an email, even if you've had emails for a long time, but you've never sent an email before, might be a little bit jarring, may not feel comfortable to your customers. But if you are on the regular sending out a newsletter already, and your customers may be thrilled to get an email about your crowdfunding campaign, your crowdfund offering. If your customers are spending very small amounts with you infrequently, they're probably less likely to be investors than if they're spending either very small amounts regularly on a committed basis. Say if you've got paying subscribers who are giving you $10 a month, or you've got a coffee shop and you've got some regulars who are coming in and getting a $6 cup of coffee every day. Those are folks that could give you money. If you're selling things that have a big ticket, let me give you an example. I invested in a company called Aptera. Aptera is making solar-powered electric vehicles. They're really cool. They look like the car George Jetson would drive if he were alive. And very cool vehicles. Those vehicles will sell for about 30 grand. They've taken deposits from thousands of people. Maybe most of those people who have made a deposit to get a car have also invested in the business. Probably the average investment from the crowd is like 5 grand, right? In part because it's a big purchase. When it comes time to get the car, they're going to stroke a check for 30 grand, one way or another. So investing 5 grand is relatively small. So if you're selling something with a big ticket item, that could be a key. And then finally, the annual average spend, right? If you have someone who's getting a cup of coffee every day, 20 days a week, that would be 1,000 cups of coffee in a year. Or no, it'd be hundreds of cups of coffee at $6 each. They might be spending over $1,000 a year with you. That might be a great potential investor. Okay. Do you have a newsletter? If you've got a newsletter, that's a great source, right? Because email communication is still a pretty effective way to communicate with our potential investors. It's not the best way, but it's a good way. And so if you've got a list of people that are regularly receiving and reading your emails, so if you've got a newsletter with 5,000, 10,000 names on it, and you are sending emails, and you know that 21.3% of the recipients are opening the email, and you've purged the bouncing emails, that sort of thing. So it's a good quality list. That's an exciting possibility. So let's look at how to assess this, right? So of course, again, we're back to how many are on the list. And then what information do you have about them? Some email lists are really just emails. So you may not even know the name of your subscribers. If you've got names and email addresses, that's better, more powerful, because you get another tool for customization. Enables you to send an email to Bob or to Sally, and not just to dear subscriber. That's powerful. That's helpful. If you have phone numbers, then you really have something powerful. That gives you an ability to start looking at doing some follow-up phone calls to some of these folks. And other things, how often do you send a post? If you've only been sending a post quarterly, you may not have the implicit permission to start sending them 3 emails a day asking for their money. But on the other hand, if you're sending a weekly newsletter or a daily newsletter, and people are staying in the mix. They haven't canceled, and they're opening and reading the emails. Now you've got something. Now you've got some, you can easily begin to layer in messaging about your crowdfund offering and enable you to raise some money. Another thing to look at is how engaged your audience is. So you send out your newsletter to people. Do you get answers back? Do you get feedback? Is there a like mechanism? Is there a comment mechanism? And if so, are people using it, right? Do people like and comment on the content you're sending? If you see that kind of thing, that you can begin to see, okay, there's potential here to raise capital from this group. Here's a pro tip on newsletters. The best time to raise capital from the crowd is unequivocally, or the best time to start a newsletter, unequivocally, without a doubt, 20 years ago, right? That's the best time to start a newsletter. You'd have a huge list and you'd have people expecting messaging, and they would love interacting with you, right? You'd have cultivated a community of people who like what you're doing. Then if you didn't do that, start today, right? Start right now. Figure out a place. I love Substack because you can do a newsletter on Substack absolutely for free. And there's a lot to be said for free. I'm a big fan of free. Take a look, find a place, whether you're using MailChimp or somebody else, Beehive. There are lots of great services now, Medium, to do a newsletter. Check it out. Figure out what's best for you. Social media. Now, I want to caution here. Social media is not irrelevant. It's important. It is valuable and valid as a tool for raising capital from the crowd. In fact, I would argue that it is essential. That said, you've got to be really careful not to overplay this. You can't expect as much. Your newsletter list, let me put this into context. I would describe your newsletter list as being at least 10 times, if not 100 times more valuable per name, per follower than your social media accounts on average. Now, if you have a huge, highly engaged following, that may be different. Let's talk about this. You want to count all of your followers across all of your social media accounts. So you probably have accounts you may have Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. Look at all of those. Figure out where you have the most, add up everyone, right? Everyone that you are actively reaching. If you abandoned your Twitter account 2 years ago, even if you have a ton of followers there, if you haven't been posting, you shouldn't be careful about counting those X followers if you haven't been there for a couple of years. So another thing to look at is how frequently you post, right? If you're posting regularly, if you are active on the platform so that your community expects you to be there, to be engaging and to be sending messages, that's a good sign that you can start working in some messaging about a crowdfunding offering. If you post rarely and only very strategically, you can still do it, but you'll need to be a little bit more cautious and continue to be strategic about how you engage your community. And then finally, let's look at and try to measure a little bit the engagement of your audience. Right? If you post something, and I know it's not necessarily emotionally healthy for us to do this, right? If you post something, are you getting likes? Are you getting comments? Are you getting engagement? If people are engaging with you, I think that's a sign that people are interested in what you're doing and they want to support you. So I would encourage you to proceed. That's a good sign. But remember, you're probably only going to raise capital from about 1 in 1,000, maybe as little as 1 in 10,000 followers. If you are exceptionally great on social media and you have a very highly engaged following, it could be higher. But a lot of the people I see on social media that have big followings and high engagement, you might see 10,000 likes on a post. Keep in mind, if they've got 12 million followers, that's still a very small percentage of people who are engaging in that content. And a smaller still number will be willing to invest. So don't overcount your social media following, but don't ignore it. It's an essential tool. Okay, I want you to start thinking, we're going to start getting a bit more creative. We've been through some of the obvious places to look. And let me just encourage you, as we're talking today, to be thinking about where you can go. If you've got questions, I want you to ask. I'm here. I'm live, right? We're doing this live. If you're watching this sometime in the future on YouTube or something, okay, it's not live. But we're live. Right now, we're live. You can stop me. You can send me a question, and I will answer the question, and we'll stop what we're doing to take your question. And so we'd welcome that. Let's talk a little bit about a trade association. For almost any business or industry, there is one or maybe more trade associations. If you're not active in that trade association, I encourage you to figure out what it is, where it is, and how to engage. I'd also note that there is a trade association for crowdfunding, for regulated investment crowdfunding. It's called the Crowdfunding Professional Association. So if you're not anywhere else, you should at least join the Crowdfunding Professional Association, where you can begin to build a community and engage with people who love crowdfunding, and some of them may invest in your deal. So begin to look. Here's how you assess your trade association situation. If you are already a member and you have some relationships there and you are already engaging, that could be a potential tool for you, right? You've got to assess a little bit around the culture and the community and how welcome you are, and whether there are mechanisms that would allow you to communicate your offering to that community. I know with the Crowdfunding Professional Association, we've got a great, what we call ecosystem, the crowdfunding ecosystem, where people can engage with one another. But a lot of groups do that I've seen over the years. They're using tools that in some ways replicate the dynamic Facebook and other communities, but they do it on a private basis with their members only. And so there may be a great place, or your trade association may also have a Facebook page or a LinkedIn page or a group where you can engage. So there may be some great ways for you to engage that trade association membership in your crowdfunding campaign. So take a look at that possibility. Also be aware that outside of the formal trade association, there are almost certainly LinkedIn groups and maybe Facebook groups and Reddit groups where you can go and talk about the business you're in. Now, each group is going to have its own rules, and it's typical for those rules to prohibit direct pitches, invest in my deal. But at the same time, some may allow that on a limited basis. Like there are some that'll say you can put something promotional in once a month or once a week. So figure out what the rules are in the virtual groups you find and begin to engage there. I think the first thing I would recommend that you do is start commenting after you find the group. Join the groups and look at the rules, then start commenting on some of the other posts immediately. You want to see what happens. If you comment on a post, does the person who posted respond to you? If there's no response, it may be a tumbleweeds environment where bots are doing the posting and no one's really reading. On the other hand, if you are commenting and the author responds to the comment and other people comment and you can interact with the other people who are commenting, now you found a community where you can begin building some relationships. And those relationships can translate into new friends on Facebook. They can translate into new connections on Reddit. They can translate into new connections on LinkedIn, enabling you then to use those communities to expand your network. And so figure out what makes sense for you, but don't ignore these virtual groups. My colleague Chandon that works with me, I mentioned him at the top of the show, he does an outstanding job at participating in these kinds of groups and with good effect. I encourage you to leverage these. I also want to encourage you to look at joining local clubs and organizations in every community around the country, whether you are in a big city like Chicago or a small town like Springfield. In all, what are there, 12 different Springfields around the country? If you're in a small Springfield, it's okay, right? There is almost certainly in your community a Rotary Club, a Kiwanis Club, a Lions Club, the Optimists. There's a Chamber of Commerce. In big cities like Chicago, you might have 5 or 6 different chambers of commerce, right? For different communities, right? You might have a chamber focused on small business and a separate chamber that is focused on an ethnic community. So there are all kinds of ways to get involved in your local community. So you can begin exploring those if you haven't already. Now, if you are already an active member and say a leader in your local Rotary Club or your local Kiwanis Club, wow, that's a place where you may be able to raise some capital. You probably need to be discreet, thoughtful, careful, but you may know who in that group is capable of writing a big check, right? There may be someone in your Optimist Club that can write a check for $25,000 and who likes you and appreciates what you're doing and actively invests as an angel investor in startups. Maybe that's someone who you could convince to put real money into your campaign. That can be a really powerful thing. But let's be clear, building those relationships takes time. I encourage you, if you haven't already joined a group like that, to start today and begin building those relationships. But you can begin to assess, do things like, again, count the number of members and how you're connecting with them. What are the written and unwritten rules about communicating something like an offer, right? Do they have mechanisms for affordably advertising to the community? Some clubs do, right? They'll have some sort of a bulletin board, physical or virtual, where you can post things either cheap or free. And so there may be some really effective ways for you to communicate with members of the club broadly, but you also may be able to leverage those individual relationships that you build over time. Let's talk a little bit about cause-driven communities. A lot of the people in our community are really focused on social impact. And I'm here because I believe that we can make a difference in the world. We can address problems and solve them one at a time, in part by investing in social entrepreneurs who are making a difference in the world. And so if you are developing a tool that can address climate change, for instance, so you're building something that would reduce food waste, or it's a better solar panel, or it's whatever it might be. If it's going to help the planet in terms of its environmental health, there are a variety of nonprofits and virtual communities that are interested in those kinds of things, and you may be able to engage. So I encourage you to begin checking it out. These are most relevant if your business intrinsically helps some sort of cause or community in a direct way, right? So if you are printing homes For instance, there have been a number of home printing businesses, large and small, that are raising capital from the crowd. Very exciting, fun to see these, but they tend to allow builders to build more affordable homes. There are a lot of people in this world that are activists of one sort or another that are interested, who are interested in affordable housing. So there may be ways for you to engage with that community. So if you are intrinsically helping a community, you'll be especially effective. If you're donating profits to support a community, that works too. It tends to be a little less effective in terms of the engagement, right? If you're selling coffee and donating some of the proceeds, that's good and noble. The people to whom you're donating may be willing to engage with you. So check that out. And so find the organizations, connect, join, support them, right? Make this a two-way street as literally as you can. And then, of course, learn and follow the rules of engagement for the community so that you don't end members of the group with a clumsy pitch too early in that relationship. Alumni networks. Many of you have gone to school, right? You graduated from high school. You have high school friends, right? If you graduated since 2007, and a lot of people have, then you graduated from high school at a time when Facebook existed, right? And so you can communicate with your friends. You probably have hundreds of friends from high school you're still engaging with. Wow. That's a powerful community in and of itself, right? So check that out. If you went to college, especially if you went after LinkedIn appeared on the scene, you may have a lot of your college chums connected on LinkedIn. At graduate school, same kind of thing. The more recently you graduated, the more likely you are to have good connections. Now, you can tell from my gray hair, I didn't graduate after 2007. But I have slowly been building connections with some of my old high school, college, and graduate school chums. And so I encourage you to look at how well you are connected and whether there are groups, Facebook pages, LinkedIn groups, etc., for your alumni cohort for the years you graduated, for your class, and see if you can't figure out ways to connect. And again, you want to be sure to observe the rules, but there are likely lots of ways for you to engage and communicate with people who are in your alumni networks. And you may have 2 or 3 different alumni networks. In fact, I have an investor in the SuperCrowd Inc. that I went to junior high school with, right? And that's how we connected. So this is for real, right? And she also invested a nice little amount. So this is for real good stuff. So assess this. If you haven't built these kinds of relationships, I admit it's tough to do this the week before you launch your crowdfunding campaign. But if you're thinking about launching a crowdfunding campaign at some point in the future, I encourage you to be engaging in all of these kinds of things, or at least as many as make sense for you. Cultural and ethnic groups. There are a lot of ways to engage with your community if you are part of a broader, identifiable cultural group. And that would include whether you're Native Americans or you're Irish, right? There are places where you can communicate and engage. So I encourage you to begin looking. I will caution you. I think this is really important. I recently discovered that I have a tiny bit of Native American ancestry descended from a famous chief. Let's be clear, though. It would be really offensive for me to now walk into a Native American community and claim membership in that community as someone who is 1/10,000th Native American, right? Not going to go over well. I want to encourage you to be really sensitive. But if you are a Native American, if you are Black, if you are Hispanic, there are a lot of ways to engage with people in your community. And I encourage you to be deliberate about that. to build relationships in that community, because increasingly there are people in those communities, in each community, that are looking for ways to invest in and support members of the community. I tend to be deliberate about trying to invest in and support people who don't look like me, precisely to be supportive of those sorts of folks. Many, if you're not new to the community, you probably know Tawana Rivers. She's the CEO of the 10K Project. The 10K Project is an organization that exclusively invests in Black founders. So there are these communities that exist. So begin looking for those opportunities if you are a member of an ethnic or cultural group. There are also interest-based communities that have sort of nothing to do, or maybe little to do, with the business, right? If you have a hobby of making cakes or riding bikes or singing or golfing or whatever it may be, if you're a fan of a team or a band, if you're a Swiftie, there are opportunities for you to be engaging with members of that community. This may or may not be a great place, but you can begin to look for the groups, formal or informal clubs that are organized and online, where you can join and have some fun, right? This is really about connecting with people who share an interest that probably has little to do with the business. Makes sense for you to go learn the culture and the rules and follow those, but look for opportunities to engage and build relationships that would allow you then to begin building your community further from that. And then finally, look for aligned affinity groups. What is an aligned affinity group? I'm talking about the groups that would make sense for you to connect with from a business standpoint. So if you are marketing to parents, you've got a product that is for nursing mothers or for parents of children who are school age, and I'm thinking of some specific examples, right, of businesses that marketed to parents that have raised capital from the crowd, right? So if you are marketing to that community, you want to then take advantage of the opportunity to actually build those relationships. And it may make sense, as you begin marketing your product and marketing your crowdfund offering, to do things like become a sponsor and become engaged, become a leader in these groups, because you're serving that. And I see this as being a little different than some of the other things we talked about. This isn't necessarily a cause, right? It's just an affinity group, but it aligns well with the business. I'm now ready to take any further questions that there may be from the group. Shannon, maybe you could pop up that overlay there again on the questions. But I have really enjoyed the opportunity to share some insights with you today. And I'm grateful that you would take the time to watch and be with us. I see that there have been a number of people engaging with us on social media. Thank you very much. If you have questions, feel free to submit them, and I will answer those questions for you now. So thank you very much for being with us today. Listen, since we're not seeing any questions now, we'll wrap up. But again, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We're thrilled to have had the opportunity to be here, and we look forward to seeing you next month at the SuperCrowd November. We'll be meeting live. I look forward, again, come with questions. We look, bye-bye.